Most fields have a range of different soil and terrain types that cause variability in field productivity. Regardless of other yield limiting issues such as climate, compaction, or input application timing, there are two constant factors from which variability can be measured, understood, and then managed season after season, and these are soil and terrain. More specifically, the spatial variation in plant available water holding capacity and potential chemical imbalances, or the spatial variation in movement of water, subsequent infiltration, and their impact on plant available water and nutrient leaching. Gateway and the Compare app quantify and display that relationship between soil and yield or terrain and yield, ensuring that spatial data becomes a meaningful and useful tool for future decisions. In Gateway, within the Analysis tab, open up the Compare app. You can add your first layer. In this case, I'm using an EC data layer collected with an electromagnetic or Verus machine. Now you can add a second data layer, such as yield, to compare back to your EM zones. The program automatically creates an appropriate number of EM zones based on the range of data and predetermined statistical settings. The data can be displayed either graphically as a column graph, as a bar chart, or as a table. Starting with the table format, the data statistics display include the mean or average yield, the minimum and maximum, or the areas on a zone basis. By entering the revenue per unit of yield and the cost per unit area to grow the crop, the app will calculate the profit per unit area for each EM zone. If the costs and profit per zone are not variable, you can enter in these values in the bottom line. The app will automatically calculate the profit per hectare for each zone, and these values are transferred down to the second table on a total revenue, total cost, and total profit for each zone basis. The final column is the opportunity column and shows the opportunity of that crop within the season. This is the additional revenue that could have been realised if all zones yielded it at the target level, and this is by default the same as the highest yielding zone. So if zones 2, 3, 4 and 5 yielded the same as zone 1, then there would be a total opportunity of $9,117.29 for that season. Going back to the chart tab, this is a graphical interpretation of exactly the same data. The 5 EM zones are displayed as columns, and the number within each of the columns represents the average EM value for that zone. The numbers above the columns represent the average yield for that zone as well. The area for each zone can be displayed. You can place your cursor on the line centrally above or within each column, and the total hectares for that zone can be read off the right vertical axis. The standard deviation can also be displayed. This gives you an idea how much range there is within the data above or below the mean, and the greater the area between the two lines, the greater the range between minimum and maximum values within that zone. The financials can be displayed within this app as well, but the chart only includes the average zone profit per hectare. Measuring field variability by soil type provides a reliable insight into the relationship between actual yield, potential yield, and crop water use. One of the great features of this program is the draggable yield target tool. These are what-if type scenario tools and visually display potential changes in yield and are automatically calculated for you. For example, the Area Optimize tool aligns yield with area. By this, the program adjusts yield potential values to represent a graduated yield decreases with decreasing zone area. The zone with the greatest area is the highest yielding, and the smallest zone has the lowest yield. This is a particularly useful tool for optimizing irrigation management or potentially placing a moisture probe. More specifically, it models the potential yield impact if the yield was managed for the majority soil type. The maximum zone value target visually displays a consistent yield based on the highest yielding zone. If no variability in the field existed and the crop was managed perfectly under perfect seasonal conditions, this would be the expected result. The zone potential tool highlights yield calculated on the potential of each soil zone, and this is based on the electromagnetic value in this particular scenario. This is a great tool for assessing the difference between reality and what if. Each of the target yield tools have a draggable feature included where you can click and drag the line to a desired target yield. The Compare app can be used to perform simple correlation between any data layers that exist. To see other examples, Google the PCT channel on YouTube or check out our website at www.pct-ag.com.